Hey everyone, welcome back to the workshop. Artisan Pirate here, and in today's fun scroll saw project video, we're going to be cutting out a beautiful and unique space-inspired piece. So really neat. I've already got the pattern printed out, prepped, and attached to our material with clear packing tape. And the design in question comes from the old discontinued Creative Woodworking and Crafts magazines. Again, these are discontinued and sadly they are no longer available. This issue that the design comes from way back in January of 2008, so the magazine is over 15 years old. I do believe you can still find copies of this magazine floating around for sale on sites like eBay and things like that, so you will just have to check and see. But the cover of this one has the beautiful scrolled out portrait that is musical inspired with the violin, Beethoven, and the cat sitting there. So a really beautiful and unique design. But the one we're going to be doing begins on page 6, and it says, "Taking flight to the stars." And indeed, that is what the project represents. In the center here, you have a nice planet with the rings around it, kind of like Jupiter, and then you have a rocket blasting off into orbit on its various sci-fi space adventures, and then you have all of the clouds from the rocket's liftoff all encapsulated in this circular style design, and then the base has a nice little oval design to it. The pattern was designed by Jacob Fowler, and the one featured here and depicted visually in the magazine was cut and finished by Mr. Wayne Fowler. So thank you guys for the beautiful space-inspired design here. The following page, page 7, has an article on how to go about cutting out the project and a list of materials you may need. As I said, the pattern has been photocopied to its full size, and the patterns were located in the pattern pull-out section that I'm thankful that I still have with that magazine, since the magazine, as I said, is over 15 years old. I tried to keep up with all of the patterns from all of those magazines when I would get them back in the day. But the material we're going to be using in today's video is going to be some more basic 3/4 inch pine shelving board. I've already got it cut to the proper dimensions, and as I said, the patterns have been attached with clear packing tape, and you can see that the design is not very big at all. It's very nice and compact, so it'll look very nice sitting on a shelf, desk, or countertop. But you can see again all of the details here. You can see the planet with the rings around it, the clouds from the rocket's liftoff, and then you have the circular frame design that encapsulates everything. And one thing I like about the base, keep in mind both of these are going to be 3/4 inch pine, is that it just has a slot there, and the overall main bulk of the scroll saw work does not have any kind of tab or anything, so it's going to kind of float down in there once we get that slot cut out, and then we will glue it in place. So I really like that unique look going for this project, and I feel that this project would be a nice project to make and bring to life and give to someone who loves outer space, loves rocket ships and studying NASA history and things like that. But since everything is pretty much prepped and prepared, let's move the camera over to the workbench so we can drill all the pilot holes required so we can step over to the scroll saw and start scrolling. And over here on the workbench, we're going to take the Seiko scroller's drill and a tiny drill bit and drill out all of the pilot holes for internal cutting. And there is a few intricate cuts on this project, but once we get over to the scroll saw, we will take our time and get through them all. You will see that I have a backer board behind the scroll saw work to prevent blowout of the pilot holes on the reverse side. Now over at the Rikon scroll saw, I'll begin by cutting out some of those smaller details. And as I said, some of the cuts are very intricate, but I am doing what I always do, and I'm taking my time and I'm letting the blade do the work, and I'm being as loyal as I can be to the cut line. For all of the scrolling on this project, I'll be using a number 5 Ultra reverse tooth blade, and it will cut through the 3/4 inch pine material here exceptionally well with minimal chip out. As I said, the pattern comes from the old discontinued Creative Woodworks and Crafts magazines, and I'll show it once again as we close the video. But when we found all those when we were spring cleaning earlier in the year, and I was going through them looking for ideas, I seen this pattern in the pages, and I knew that I would have to bring it to life visually over here on the platform. I have a buddy down at the beach who works 3rd shift who really loves NASA and space themed stuff, so this will of course be a gift to him. Here on the close-up view, you can see how I am tackling some of those intricate cuts. Of course, this project does have some of those sharp V-points that are featured in some scroll saw woodworking patterns, and you guys know how I go into all of those. I will go into one side of the V and I'll back the scroll saw blade out and go into the other side to taper it down to as fine a point as the pattern calls for. And because I just use basic clear packing tape to attach patterns to material 99% of the time, you can see that with the fan on me as well as a dust blower, that the pattern does want to lift around and flap around. But with my years of scroll saw woodworking experience, it is something that I've gotten used to. We are now doing some of those final internal cuts. Of course, with a project like this with some fragile areas, you want to, of course, save that final largest internal cut for the last cut. But when we come back around here, all of the internal cutting on the project will be complete, and then it will be time to start releasing the pieces from the material. And keep in mind, I am using a soft pine, and it can be brittle at times. I will test the fit here of the slot with a scrap piece of the same 3/4 inch material, and now we will release the base and the scroll work from the waste wood. If you guys like what you're seeing, I would highly encourage you to subscribe to my channel and also follow me across all my social media feeds under the Artisan Pirate name. I'd really appreciate the support. But now all of the scroll saw work is complete, and we'll remove the pieces from the waste wood carefully to get our first visual of the finished project. So a really nice space inspired piece here. And it is now time for sanding, and we'll sand very carefully with 180 grit Klingspor Woodworking Shop sandpaper in the vibrating palm sander. Of course, the rocket ship blasting off is very fragile, so I'm being very careful with how I sand the piece, using small circular motions. But back over on the workbench, I'll take a sanding sponge to do some touch-up sanding to remove some more of those fuzzies. And I'll glue the piece to the base with medium grade CA glue and activator. And I'll give it around 5 minutes to completely dry and cure. And then we'll give it a splash of color with a very light shade of Minwax wood stain. This lighter shade does not mask off the natural grains and textures of the pine material. And it is a golden pecan Minwax wood stain. But we'll wipe off all of the excess and hang it on a hook to dry. And once the project is dry, we'll finish it with a few coats of Rust-Oleum clear gloss. The Rust-Oleum clear gloss makes the grain textures pop, gives it a nice glossy appearance and protection for years to come. Once it dries, the project is complete. And here we have the completed outer space inspired piece, cut out completely from start to finish over on the scroll saw. Once again, showing off the scroll saw's versatility for creative and unique designs. And it has some very beautiful and delicate and fragile details in it. I want to once again thank Mr. Wayne and Jacob Fowler for the beautiful and creative design from the old discontinued issues of Creative Woodworking and Crafts Magazine. I'll once again hold that magazine up for you guys to see as we close the video here momentarily. But really beautiful design. As soon as you pick this project up and start looking at it, you can easily tell and depict what the project is. The central detail has the nice big planet, kind of like Jupiter out in our solar system, with the nice rings around it. And then when you look a little bit closer, you have two smaller planets, one right there off to the side, and then you have the nice added detail and touch of the rocket lifting off into space on an out-of-this-world sci-fi adventure. And I really love how it has all of the clouds from the rocket lifting off into space, and it really looks like it's having a nice blast off. Of course, it takes a lot of force to blast off into the atmosphere and reach the orbit of outer space and everything. But really cool, really creative, compact design, all encapsulated in this circular frame here, complete with a nice little base. It took me around an hour to scroll everything out completely from start to finish. It is a very fragile and delicate project, my friends. So over at the scroll saw, I did what I always do, and I took my time and I let the blade do the work, and I was as loyal as I could be to the cut line. And I hope that the results speak for themselves. A lot of immaculate detail is in this little compact space-inspired piece. But really, really cool. Keep in mind, I cut the project out of a very soft pine material. Of course, pine is readily available in my area, and it's what I like to teach with visually over here on the platform to bring the projects to life from start to finish in video format. By all means, you could cut the project out of exotic or hardwoods. Keep in mind, it would be an even more slower cut, if that makes any sense, if you was using harder or denser materials like poplar, walnut, oak, maple, or anything like that. But as always, I think there is several different finishing options for a project like this. If you did not want to go into all of the details of cutting everything out like I have in today's video, you could of course just cut out the shape of the clouds, the shape of the planets, and the rocket ship, and go in with some acrylic craft paints and paint everything up and give it a nice out of this world look and vibe to it. So really cool, really neat. I finished this project with a very light shade of Minwax wood stain that did not mask away the natural grains and textures of the pine material that we used. Again, I think pine is very underrated to work with. You just have to be a little bit more careful and take your time with it, because it is a soft material and it could potentially break or chip away while over at the scroll saw or over when you are sanding. But after the stain had dried, we gave the project a few coats of Rust-Oleum clear gloss for a nice finish and protection, and you can see the clear gloss reflected in the lights of the workshop there, and it completed this beautiful space-inspired design. I think there is a few different finishing options for this project, as well as display options. We've talked about the finishing options with painting it or doing things like that. But versatility for the pattern, I cut the project out as it was intended in the magazine that I'm getting ready to hold up and show you guys, and we'll compare the one in the magazine to the one we have made here. But you could also cut this out of thinner material and maybe put a dark black backer board on it and put some white dots on it to simulate the stars out in outer space to really give this a celestial and outer space vibe to it. I also feel like if you did not want to add the base, you could of course make it for a piece of wall art. And for display options, I think it could of course with the base easily freestand on a shelf, desk, or countertop, but I think it would be right at home sitting on a bookshelf beside some sci-fi books in a sci-fi book collection. So options and versatility for how to make the project as well as displaying the project. But as I said, the design come from the old discontinued issues of Creative Woodworking and Crafts magazines, and here is the one depicted in the magazine itself, and the proper title for the project is Taking Flight to the Stars. And once again, thanks to Mr. Jacob and Wayne Fowler for the beautiful design depicted there. There is the one they made, so you see its visual representation, and there you see the one that we made and brought to life in today's video. Hopefully I justified the pattern. The full-size pattern for that design is featured in the full pattern pull-out sections that are featured in the magazine. And once again, the issue in question goes all the way back to January 2008. There you see the cover with the beautiful musical inspired piece there on the cover with the violin, the portrait of Beethoven, and the cat sitting there. And the design itself, as I said, begins very early in the magazine on page 6 with a description of the project and how to go about sometimes cutting it out in the different materials you may need, with suggestions on the following page on page 7. But really, really cool. Had a lot of fun in this project, and I know that this is going to be a gift to my buddy down at the beach who loves outer space and NASA history and rocket ships and things like that. Me and him talk occasionally, and he really loves looking up at the stars. He's got phone apps that'll tell him what constellations are in the area, what planets are visible in the night sky, and of course with him working third shift, he's able to go out and see the beautiful celestial world of outer space. So this will be a gift for him, and once it is displayed for a while out here in the workshop, I will of course pack it up carefully and take it to him whenever the case may be the next time I am down towards the coast of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. But really cool, Really beautiful outer space project here that once again shows off the scroll saw's versatility for creative and unique designs. But one more look at it here as we get ready to close up the video. Hopefully along the course from beginning to end, you guys picked up a tip, trick, or tidbit along the way. But that's going to about wrap it up for this video. If you're new to the channel, hopefully you'll click that subscribe button and follow me across all my social media feeds under the Artisan Pirate name. As always, links to contact me as well as all my social media feeds will always be linked down in the description box below these videos. That's about all for this one, and remember guys, if I can make it or do it, so can you guys. I'm the Artisan Pirate. Take care, and I'll see you guys real soon.